So welcome everyone. Today we have Lauren. She is a game writer and she's joining us from Houston, Texas. So I'm just going to give it to Lauren and have her introduce herself, talk about what she does in games, what made her join the industry, and talk about all the cool stuff that she's been doing this whole time. Did someone say something? I missed it.
I think it might have been an accident.
Oops. Okay, no problem. Yeah, we can come on mic at the end and ask questions to Lauren. Feel free to, use that time to directly talk to her. But yeah, Lauren, take it from here, and I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Well, let me share my very, very elegant slideshow. So yeah, hi guys. My name is Lauren Mee. Right now I'm a senior writer at Insomniac Games. I was lead writer on the most recent Ratchet and Clank game. And I'm currently working on Spider-Man 2. And the way that I kind of organized this presentation was I'm going to kind of give you a summary of my life, hopefully quick, so how I got to where I am, tell you a little bit about like what it is to even write for games, and then give you some advice that will hopefully be helpful. And then we could do our Q&A. So I have a really sick slide here where I'll be honest, it was pretty difficult figuring out like what I wanted to put in this presentation, because I feel like I have so much to say to you all, because I remember what it was like trying to be creative at every age. So like, for example, this is a photograph of me in, I think, like second grade. And growing up, I spent most of my time like writing and playing games. So it's either like outside, playing pretend with my friends, or playing video games in my room. But I actually started writing at like 7 or 8 years old. I was writing about like superpowered cats, hence this gorgeous image here. Vampires were super cool at the time. I was writing fan fiction of my favorite anime, just like anything and everything, just letting my imagination run wild. And I kept writing until I was in high school, which I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but high school was definitely like peak self-doubt age for me. I wasn't sure that I was very good at writing. It was something I really liked doing. But my friends were like, hey, we're going to apply to this art school, this arts high school. You should do it too. And I want you all to listen carefully, because I was like, absolutely not. I am not good enough for that. Like I am going to get rejected. I was really, really scared to apply for the school, but kicking and screaming, they dragged me into the audition. I applied for the communications and writing program, and I got in. To my shock and awe, I got into this art school. And when I was there, I took a lot of creative classes. So I took graphic design, film, journalism, but most importantly, I was in writing classes. And when I was there, we were always writing stories, giving them to our classmates, teachers, and getting a lot of feedback, which of course is very challenging and difficult, but it was so important. I feel like one of the things that made me and has continued to make me a better writer is getting feedback from my peers and my teachers and my mentors. But that was like where I learned that first lesson, was the importance of feedback. And on the side, I was on a bunch of writing forums where I would write stories with my friends about like the different games that we played, or coming up with our own characters and writing together. So it's just something that I did all the time. But the biggest thing the school did for me was they pushed me to submit my writing for competitions. So like a theme you'll see with me, and I hope that many of you probably relate to, is self-doubt. And you're like, oh, again, even though I got into the school, it's like, I don't know if I could win any competitions. I don't think that I'm going to get accepted for anything. But, so I didn't win all of them, but I did end up getting a couple awards for my writing. But it was, again, because people encouraged me to submit. So from there, I went to college for fiction writing. And as some of you might have heard, I'm like currently moving. So I have a bunch of stuff out of boxes. And I got my degree in fiction writing, which is, yes, that's a real thing. Can you believe that? That's a real thing. I don't know if it is anymore. It has to be. So anyway, while I was there, I realized that writing for games was a thing that you could do. I realized that that was a job. And I was like, well, I love games. I love writing. I want to do that. How do I do that? So I went to my guidance counselor and I asked about internships. And they were like, they're very kind, but they were like, yeah, I mean, you do like writing, but you're not, don't have a ton of published stuff. You don't have any experience making games. So like, we're not sure that you'll be able to get any of those internships. I was like, darn it. Okay. So now what? So in my college, I was doing my writing classes, but then on the side, I found all of our game making classes. So I knew we had a game program. So I started taking a programming class, a design, art, voiceover. I'm not good at any of those, not good at any of those things. But I was like, if I can learn these things, maybe that's my in to getting into the industry. So I'm more well-rounded. I sought out mentors. So I would ask my teachers for advice and for connections and be like, hey, like, do you have anyone I could talk to? I just need to learn how to get into the industry. What do I do? And then I found some internships. So I found internships on my own. I applied to a bunch of them. I was like, okay, but like, let's see what happens. And I didn't get any of them. I didn't get any of my internships. So I was at a point where I was like, okay, well, my guidance counselor was right, but I know I want this job. So what do? I need to be better. I need to find a way to be more marketable. So I went to grad school. And so I ended up going to grad school to study game production. So I went to the University of Utah for their game program. And honestly, the most important thing I did there, which is like amazing that you're all here now, is make games. That was something that was kind of, I didn't really know how to do when I was in college. When I was in grad school, I was like, oh, I'm surrounded by people who want to make games. So I need to take advantage of that. So we would do our game making inside of class, but then I would find all my friends or other peers and we would do game jams and side projects and just constantly be making things. And then this is a little sneaky. I don't know if you could still do this, but we would try and find places to publish them. So that way we could put them on our portfolio and be like, look, we have published games. Like I've worked with a team. I know how to like complete a game and publish it. So we had things on like the on itch, on Steam, on like mobile store. We just did everything that we could to try and get our games visible. But honestly, like the scariest thing I did was I reapplied for one of the internships that I didn't get before, and it was at my dream company. So I was like, okay, and I almost didn't do it. It was literally a few hours before it was due, and you had to like write a whole branching narrative, submit a resume, and I was like, oh my god, I can't do this. My friend was sitting next to me. They're like, what do you have to lose? Like, just apply. So I applied, and I ended up getting the internship this time. And I ended up getting hired on full time at that studio. That was called Telltale Games. And the games that we made there were basically choose your own adventure games. So I worked on a game about Batman, and I worked on a Walking Dead game. And it was great. I worked there for a couple of years until the studio closed. And I left as a lead writer. That was my last title at that studio. And then now I work at Insomniac. So after Telltale closed, I worked at other couple like little mobile studios, and then I ended up getting the job at Insomniac Games, where I worked on Ratchet and now Spider-Man. And so, which brings me to the question that some of you might be having, which is, what is a game writer? What does that even mean? What do you do? So a game writer does a lot of things. One of the biggest things, of course, is to come up with the overall story of the game. So the what is the player doing and the why. We also help come up with like the characters. What are their personalities? What do they look like? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? And we also write pretty much like all the text you see on screen. So character descriptions, weapon summaries, journals, if you get like emails or texts or messages from other characters, like more often than not, there will be a writer who is the one inputting all of that information. And one of the biggest things is teamwork, actually. So if you look at something like this, so this is a scene from Ratchet and Clank. Something like this would have a script, of course, but that's not, I don't just press send on that script and then call it a day. You have to work with every single person at the studio to make sure that everything about this makes sense in the grand scheme of the story. So, for example, this cinematic exists in a mission, and that mission is owned by the designer. So you have to make sure that the gameplay on either side of this connects to the cinematic. You need to talk to environment to make sure that like this room makes sense within its universe. You need to work with animation to make sure that the character is accurately expressing what they're feeling in that moment, make sure that it suits their personality. Does the lighting match the mood of what you're trying to get from the scene? Is the music right? You know, so on and so forth. Being a writer is all about collaboration. It's not going into a room and then coming out with the holy text, you know. It's you want to be working with everybody, listening to everybody, taking their wonderful thoughts and feedback and ideas into account and building that into your work. So more than anything, you want to be a good teammate as a writer, as much as you are a good writer in and of itself. And this probably goes without saying, but I just want you all to feel really encouraged to think about every game through the lens of story. There's lots of writing in other games, all kinds of games, mobile games, online games. You know, it's not just the big, you know, fancy games. There's small indie games. There's, you know, big blockbusters, whatever. There's writing in all of it. So if you end up deciding to be a game writer someday, I know sometimes people can feel like, well, oh my gosh, how am I going to get into this huge studio when I don't have experience? It's like, you don't have to do that. Like so my fiance also works in games, and he started at like making little robots. So he was a game designer for robots. And then from there, he worked on mobile games. And from there, you know, he works on the new Star Wars game. So it's like, you could take a journey to where you ultimately want to go. And you might even end up falling in love with these different types of game making. Like mobile game writing can be so fun. Like working on your own indie game and coming up with your own project is so unique and interesting. Like there are lots of types of game writing. There isn't just one fit. And so I either went way too fast or way too slow, but I just wanted to talk about some advice.
You're good on time. Don't worry.
Yeah, nice,
Doing
nice.
great.
Thank you. Yeah, so the last thing I talked about was just a little bit of advice, like things that I've learned. You've actually heard me probably say a couple of times in this presentation, which is a big one that everyone really struggles with, but it's so important, is to get feedback from your friends, from your teachers, from your parent, whoever. One of the hardest things about anything really, but especially something creative, is to ask what do you think? It's always really, really hard. But what they tell you will help improve your work so much. When someone says like, nah, I don't like it, that's fine. But the important thing to take from that is like, okay, well, I wonder why. And look at your work again through their perspective. You know what I mean? So like even something that doesn't seem super productive, try not to take it personally. Look at what they're saying and think about how you can use it to make your work better. Sometimes it won't be nice, that's fine. And sometimes you'll realize like what people love. So people might be like, oh man, I really like this character, or wow, this line's really funny. And you can use that to be like, okay, well, those are my strengths. So you never know what you might get from asking for feedback. And it'll help you build confidence, because one of the biggest things that you want to do is to believe in yourself, believe in your work, and know that when you're getting these notes, it's not a reflection on you. It's just a free way to improve your craft, and improve yourself, improve what you're doing. Another big thing is to try again and keep trying. Everyone I know, from like my coworkers to even some of my bosses and my mentors, all are like, I'm so bad at my job. I can't believe they hired me. Who did I trick to let me do this? Like, there are very few people who think that they are amazing at what they do. So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough, everyone thinks that. Don't worry about it. Like, don't let that stop you. Like I mentioned before, when I have applied to things and didn't get it, I was like, oh man, woe is me. This is the end. But that's not true. Because when I tried again, I got the job. So you just got to keep trying. You can't let your own inner voices get the best of you. And it's the only way that you get better, is you improve and you keep going. You can't let go of those dreams if you just because it didn't happen the first time. Always ask. If you have questions, need help, don't understand something, there's no shame in asking questions. You can always seek out the answers in the direction that you need. I know sometimes it can be a little embarrassing to ask for help. It's like, oh, I still struggle with it sometimes. I'm like, man, shouldn't I know this? Shouldn't I be the person people come to for answers? It's okay. No one's judging you. And as a matter of fact, most of the time, people will be really proud and impressed that you ask for help and that you have thoughtful questions. And then finally, and this is truly the biggest one, is don't say no to yourself. It can be very easy to get ahead of rejection and say, well, I'm just not going to do it because I'm not, they'll say no, they'll say no. If you see a competition pop up, submit to it, even if you're not, doesn't have to be writing, like whatever. If you see a competition or a challenge or whatever, sign up, send your work in. If you think that your stuff, if you have something that matches the qualifications, do it. If you don't, make it. Just apply to it. If your friend is making something on the side, ask if you can help. Maybe there's not a perfect space for you, but you'd be like, hey, here are ways that I think that I can contribute to this project. If you see an amazing college program that you can apply to, but you're not sure if you'll get in, apply anyway. And then when you're older and you're looking at jobs and or internships and thinking like, oh man, it says I need 3 years of experience, or I need, this, that, the other. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Apply anyway. Between my time at that first studio I talked about, Telltale, and Insomniac, there was about 9 months where I applied to, I can't even count how many things I applied to. And all of them said, you don't have enough experience, you don't have enough experience, we really like your work, we really like you, not enough experience, which totally makes sense. I wasn't the right fit at the time, but I was like, well, I can't just give up. I really want to be a writer in games. So I just kept going. And then eventually, after like a bunch of interviews, I got a job at Insomniac. So it would have been very easy for me to say, you know what, I can't do it. But after so many years of people telling me to stop doing that, I was like, I have to listen to them, have to keep applying. I can't say no to myself. So I want you all to keep in mind, when you're getting scared or you're not sure if you can do something, don't get ahead of rejection. If someone rejects you, it's okay. It's not a reflection on you. It could be for a plethora of reasons that you ultimately don't get something, but you can't let that stop you from pursuing what you want to do and improving and getting better and reaching your goals. Let other people say no. Don't do it to yourself, because you never know what could happen. And that's it. I should have made a cool inside. Oh, I did. I mean,
this was so great. So inspiring, I would say. And I think everyone here would agree to that. Pretty much everything that you said, especially the last slide. It's like a recurring theme from like every speaker we've had so far, and you kind of just summarized it for us today. And it's something that, like our campers, as they're starting on their game development journey, this is something that they've been thinking about too. Like, what if I'm not good enough? What if I've never played enough games? What if I don't have any creative ideas? Or how am I going to make a game in 2 weeks? Like, this is difficult. How do I collaborate? How do I talk to other people? So yeah, you really hit all those notes and points. And I think everyone has some great takeaways from this conversation. So let's open up the floor for some questions. Does anyone have a question that they want to ask? Well, we have our first question already. Sorry. What is your favorite game or one that you worked on?
Ooh, so my favorite game is like, you're like, what the heck is this probably? But my favorite game is this game called Disco Elysium, which is like it's a role-playing game. But I would say that one of my other favorite games that I would recommend that you all play is called What Remains of Edith Finch, which is a very beautiful exploration of like, oh, who's this girl? What's her life story? What was her family like? Um, it's short and it's very inexpensive, and so I think that it combines narrative and design beautifully. So that's one that I would recommend.
It's awesome. All right, I see someone raised their hand. Maddie raised their hand. Maddie, do you want to come on chat or on voice to ask the question?
I'll come on voice.
Yay.
I have a question that might be kind of big.
Okay, let's do it.
Did anyone along the way tell you couldn't do this because you were feminist?
Oh, that is actually here. Wait, let me stop here my screen. That is a very good question. You're right. That's huge. Luckily, I have not had that happen to me. There are always challenges with that kind of thing, but I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by people who are really supportive of making sure that we have representation of women in our games, representation of women in our studios. If you encounter someone who says that to you, I would say that that's probably not a place that people you want to be around, or a place that you would want to work or use your time. I hope that you haven't experienced that, but luckily I have not. That's a very good question.
I have not, but I feel like it's interesting to ask people if other people have brought them down just because they're feminist.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a very good question. You should keep asking. I feel very fortunate to say that I've not had that experience.
Yep. Thank you. I'm gonna ask Nicole. Nicole, do you want to come on voice?
Yes, I'll come on voice. My question is about like you deal with creativity, you deal like with working, writing. What are your tips on creative block? Like how do you deal with that when you have one? Because I have them quite frequently.
Oh man, yeah, that's a very relatable. That's a very relatable problem. So this might be like a kind of a cringe answer, but it's true, which is I just keep doing it. It's like, even if it's just like one sentence at a time, like I'll have my document open and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't feel like doing anything, but let's just put something on this page until something comes to me. And sometimes it never does, but at the end of the day, you'll at least have one page done. You know what I mean? So it's just forcing it out of yourself. And usually you'll end up looking back at it and being like, oh, that actually wasn't that bad. I actually really like this. Or like, that's not, I see where I was getting at, but it's not really for me. You just need that page.
Yeah.
Or that, one drawing or whatever it is that you're doing, one line of code.
The idea is to keep making progress.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that happens, that can help a lot, because usually I just have the block and I stare at the blank, and then you start to come together with the imposter syndrome and you're like, oh my God, I can't do anything.
Yep. Don't listen to that voice because it's not true. It is not true.
There you go. Great. Thank you, Nicole. Gabrielle, good question.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for that talk. That addressed a lot of things that I've worried about a lot as an artist. I was wondering if you ever play if you've ever played any of the games that you have worked on, and if so, how does it feel like returning to a game as a player after being like one of its big creators?
Oh man, no one's ever actually asked me that before. I do, because usually the things that I work on, you work on it so hard for so long, you just like kind of fall in love with it. Like, so usually when I replay it, it's really easy to find all the flaws and everything that you do. I'm like, oh man, why did I do that? Or like, oh shit, this is better. But for the most part, it's reveling in the final product of seeing what everyone else did coming together to make the thing. Because when you're writing something, especially as like we're in any department, but as a writer, you're like, here's a page, And so when you see all the incredible talent that went into every single part of that, I never get tired of it. I love seeing how it all comes together in the end. I should replay some of those games.
Okay, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
That was a great question. Someone actually DM'd me and they want to know, how do you work on your work-life balance? Like, what are some of your ideas and thoughts on that?
Oh man, no, that's a big question because it is something that I self-imposed have not been very good at in the past, but have started to get good at recently. I think for me, I invested a lot of, since I worked so hard to get into the industry, I put a lot of my identity into my job. And I think that that's something that you want to be careful about once you start doing the work, which is like, okay, this is me, but it's not you. Like there are other things that you can explore about yourself and your life and find value in. So like I'm trying to find hobbies. Like I'm like, oh, what if I get into like painting and decorating? And what if we just got a pet chinchilla? I'm like, well, we take care of him. It's like spending time with family and friends. Like I try and remind myself of there's equal value to being Lauren as there is to being, writer on game. So it's finding the value in both sides of your life and making sure that you respect both sides of your life just as much. At least that's how I've been trying to handle it.
That is so spot on. It's like, I like how you said, there's Lauren the writer and then there's Lauren the person. Like both have to be respected, both need time, and both have great things to do. Yeah. And I think all of us kind of relate to that. Like we all have, some identities, like maybe we have a sibling or we have some friends, or, we're at school and we're like a community leader, things like that. And we kind of have to give time to all these identities, but not just, do one forever. And then that leads to things like burnout.
Exactly.
Awesome. I think I saw a question about if you had a pet. I'm not
That's
sure.
actually why I mentioned it, because I saw someone ask in the chat. So,
yeah, nice.
Elizabeth has 2 chinchillas.
So cute.
That's iconic.
I probably missed it, but yeah. Great. No, this is such a great talk, Lauren. I feel like everyone here related to pretty much all of it. So thank you so much. But before we go, we're going to take a group photo, or a couple group photos actually. And I know there's lots of other questions too. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. So Lauren, do you have any tips on, maybe if anyone wants to reach you or things like that, can they reach you on social media?
I don't use social media a lot, but let me give you, should I drop in the chat or just give it to you? I'll give my email.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I hope you don't get like questions in the middle of the night, but
it's okay. I'll do my best to answer as many things as I can.
Thank you. All right, let's get that group photo.
All right,
it's like I have a Twitter,
the drill. All right, we're gonna take 2 smiley pictures and then 2 silly pictures.
Oh, heck
so
yeah.
Let's get ready for the first smiley picture. Ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, awesome. And now we're gonna take a second smiley picture. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, and now everyone's favorite part, the silly pictures. All right, first silly picture. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, and then one last one. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, awesome.
Gotta commit to the silly picture.
That was so great. Awesome. Well, everyone say thank you to Lauren on chat.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate all your time for asking me here. This was so much fun. You're all amazing. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Bye.